from Millen Farm. We're here today at Powerful Our Permaculture Market Garden. So today we're going to try and walk you through the design of the market garden and a little bit to do with the zone planning that goes on here at the farm. So here you can see that we've got down here in D block the amount of plants that we can stack in here using this bio-intensive method where we think about the plant at its maximum size and we plant accordingly. So as we walk up through this section up here, you can see that the plants are all planted at really fine spaces. So it enables a few different things, the management of weeds, but also the management of weeds through the middle of these paths. So you can see we've worked on the diagonal here, and that way we can spread those weeds all the way through. Doesn't take much to grab a wire weeder and we can just run up and down these rows really quickly. So this is zone 1. So in zone 1 we've got everything nice and close, we've got everything nice and tight, everything's here that we need and we don't have to walk too far to get it. The planting that goes on here has changed a lot from the early days. We used to run grass paths, but we found now that using these dirt paths has fitted in way more space. So now we can plant way more crops down here, and it really allows us to supply all the supply chains that we supply. Alright, so we're up in the top of the market garden now. This is where we've started to integrate certain things into the market garden, like the pawpaw trees. So if we just wander up this way a little bit, we can see what we've done is placed down a row of trees where this existing tree already was. So using the existing space as it already is, but transitioning and thinking about how we can utilize the space that's underutilized here on the farm. So by planting in these rosemaries, the pawpaws, more rosemaries, pawpaws, now we're filling gaps. We're allowed to fill these gaps up and allow ourselves to create harvest from things that we normally wouldn't have created harvest from at all. If we walk up through the top here, we can see the integration of all the plants that we've put in together. Different plants, different stacks, different stratas. So we've got a whole range of different plants that roll up through here. All the way from the top, we've got the spring onions, the broccolis, the cauliflowers, the cabbage, the radish, the turnips, the zucchini, the lettuces, the Asian greens. The beneficial bug row that we run in the middle brings in the bees into the middle of the market garden. All these things really helping to integrate into what we want as a fully sustainable market garden. Alright, so now we're going to run you through one of the crop cycles that we plant here at the farm. This one's a real strata building one, and I've been really impressed with the way this one's worked. So what we did is we planted capsicums or jalapenos along with Asian greens as seedlings. Along the edges we put in turnips and radishes. Radishes on the sunny side and turnips on the non-sunny side. They all grew up. We came through. We harvested out these beautiful Asian greens just as they were starting to take over these capsicums. And then what we did is, after we harvested all the Asian greens, these capsicums and chilies all burst out of the ground 100 miles an hour. We dropped off all that microbiology that was looking after these plants, and they all transitioned over to these other plants and really helped them boost and push through that next stage of growth. The next thing that came out was the radishes and the turnips. So they all came out at once, all on the one day, to fill the box subscriptions. It was a really great day. And what happened then? We left with the capsicums, the chilies, and now they are the pioneer species, and they're the climax species that we want in the end. They're both, but also using elevation and using stacking to provide these areas where we're now planting sunflowers over the top. So they were also planted as seed at the exact same time that the seeds were planted along the edge for the radish and the turnip. And you can see now they're starting to be the top of the strata, not the capsicums anymore. And now we've got a harvest of Asian greens, a harvest of radish, a harvest of turnip, and now we're into harvesting these beautiful chilies and capsicums. So this one's for you, Suzanne.
Oh, thank you. Beautiful.
All right. All right, so here we are up in zone 5. The market garden is only meters away from us right now. The old chicken house, only meters away, but here we see that what we're in is 45 years of regrowth from when this was originally a cattle property. So a lot of this was all grass. There was trees scattered around, but there was nowhere near the amount of diversity and almost rainforest growth through here now. So you can see, just by leaving it alone, we let nature do what it does best and transition itself back to the way it used to be. This area gets no management whatsoever. We let it completely go and do whatever it wants to do, and nature does it best. So that's exactly what we've done. Just let it go, and it's created this beautiful, beautiful, almost 18 acres of now beautiful habitat, which is just filled with so many things that we need on the market garden, and bringing them this close to the market garden is one of the best things that you can do. Zone 5 next to zone 1. Now we'll go up and we'll have a look at a zone 3 food forest. All right, so here we are up in the zone 3 food forest. This is packed with fruit trees, and right behind you there, Suzanne, is the banana circle. So all of the water here from the grey water and the storm water all ends up here inside this banana circle. We've had a bit of dramas obviously with the wind. You can see the bananas are quite damaged, but it doesn't take much to come in, fix up those bananas and get them all working back up in action again. This is a way of really slowing and stopping the water. Also, building this food forest on 2 terraces. We're on a bit of a slope here, around 18, 19 degrees. So it's a little bit steep. You can't really tell because I'm standing on one of the terraces, but this is a way of backing off a terrace of 5 degrees, allowing it to hold that water in the back and seep subterraneanly through the soil, and in turn feed all of these trees we've got in here. So you can see peach, you can see sarbonut, mulberry, jackfruit, citrus, lychee, ice cream bean, you name it. There's so many trees that we've stacked in here. It was 100% input at the time, but I can't recall a time when I've even been down here in the past 6 months other than to harvest food. So you can see it was a lot of input to put in. 100% of my work was done to put this in, but now the value adding is coming back to me, where I don't have to really do any work whatsoever, and it's 100% output in food coming back in my direction. So here we are at the top. This is what we were talking about just before. This is a swale, but a very small swale, in which all the shower water from the house comes down and feeds this system. There used to be a few other things in here, but this raspberry's really taken over, and we've let it take over, because now these fruit that we're now racing the bird for are some of the most beautiful fruit that you've ever tasted. So juicy and so delicious, all from just being able to be watered every day. And we don't water it, the shower waters it. It's perfect use of water that is normally necessarily given away, but here we're utilising all of that water and really making sure that we're slowing water at every point, and allowing those trees to access that water and force their way through to the top of the canopy and become climax in the end. Alright, so here we are at the top of the house. This used to be zone 1. It's now zone 2. Originally we did all of our food production here back in the early days. We had three beds. One of those beds has now been turned into a chicken house. One's been turned into a giant compost pile. that we now allow every volunteer plant that wants to grow, we allow it to grow. And therefore we're gaining a harvest from something that we didn't even really have anything to do with. Moving over to this section, this is where we had a lot of the food production happening, really fast rotation stuff. But now, of course, Zone 1 down in the market garden, that's where all of our food production is done. There's no need to bring any more plants up here. We're running a market garden. We get all of our food from down there. So as we move across here, we can see the naturalized swimming pool. So what we've done here is we've just simply turned the filter off, let the pool do what it wants to do. So obviously it went through stages. The first stage was when it was bubbling up with all of its algae. The second stage was when that algae dropped. The third stage was when the algae lifted again, and then the algae dropped, and we noticed that there was mosquitoes growing inside there. So once we found the mosquitoes growing in there, we knew that this pond was ready to accept life. We started putting in the plants, we started putting in the fish, we started putting in these systems that help the water be able to be cleared a lot quicker. This is a reed bed system. So obviously we've just chopped it all back. It had taken over a little bit of the tank, but this is part of the management of a natural pool, where the external systems that help create the pool are needed to be constant maintenance. So here we see Zone 2, we visit this once, maybe twice a week, and we need to constantly manage this area. So that's why we call this area now Zone 2. Alright, so now we're going to talk about the zones that we've just visited. Zone 1, it's visited a lot of times, at least 3 or 4, if not 5 times a week. Definitely heavily visited. Zone 2 up here in the house area, you can see that there used to be Zone 1. It doesn't get visited as much anymore, and it really doesn't need as much maintenance as a Zone 1 area. So you can see we're starting to relate things back to how many times are we visiting the place and how much maintenance does it require. You can see the Zone 3 food forest. The Zone 3 food forest gets visited once every 6 months, or maybe a little bit more when the harvests are on, but it really hardly ever gets visited at all. You can see Zone 5. It never gets visited. It's left to its own devices, and it does what it does best, and just build that biomass 100% and hardcore. Out here, we're in a sort of a Zone 4 food forest. This is right near Zone 2, which used to be Zone 1, but now this is Zone 4, because this is left almost completely wild. It's visited less than the food forest down in Zone 3. So you can see how we're relating the times, the amount of visits that we have to make, and the amount of maintenance that we do on the way that we transition zones from being Zone 1 all the way through to Zone 5. So we look at a house, a normal house yard, we think, you know, there might only be Zone 1 and Zone 2. Here we're on 20 acres, so of course the zones are going to be vast and varied, and not all zones are intermingled. They're spread out in different parts of the area. Zone 1 doesn't have to be beside Zone 2. As you can see down the bottom there, Zone 1 right beside Zone 5, bringing in that beneficial habitat, bringing in all those bugs that are right there in Zone 5 to the market garden in Zone 1. You can see the food forest down here in Zone 3 and the food forest difference to the food forest up here in Zone 4. This is very mismanaged if you were to come at it from a different angle, but if you're coming at it from the permaculture angle, we're building biomass, we're doing all the right things, and we're really trying to create as much habitat as possible and let natural things progress in a natural way. That is how we roll in here on Powerful Hour Permaculture Farm. So thank you very much for today.
Yeah, thank you, Arran.